is Rachel Lawrence, and I'm chair of the Mormon Environmental Stewardship Alliance, and I'm delighted to be able to introduce our speaker to you tonight. Darren Parry is the former chairman of the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation. Darren serves on the Utah Humanities and PBS Utah Board of Directors. He attended the University of Utah and Weber State University and received his bachelor's degree in secondary education. Darren is the author of The Bear River Massacre, a Shoshone History, and teaches Native American history at Utah State University. He lectures around the country on Native American issues surrounding history and Indigenous views related to sustainability. He recently gave a lecture at the University of Copenhagen and spoke about Indigenous views to climate and environment. His passions in life are his wife Melody, 7 children, and 17 grandchildren. His other passion is his tribal family. He wants to make sure that those who have gone before him are not forgotten. I would like to add that in the time that I have known Darren, I have been impressed with his persistent quest to heal and build community, his ability to balance kindness with the need to acknowledge responsibility where it is due, and his generous and open heart. Darren, thank you for giving us the benefit of your perspective and wisdom. We look forward to your words.
Thank you for having me. I want you to know a couple of things. I live a pretty blessed life. This semester, I took a position at the University of Utah in their Environmental Humanities program. It's a graduate program. I learned a couple of things. One, I love the students. I have hope for the future because of the students that I've been able to involve with. The other thing I've learned is Western ways of learning doesn't exactly fit with how Native Americans have learned. I've learned that our institutions of higher ed are there to continue capitalism. That's the way we know it. That's bothered me a little bit. It's bothered me to the point that I actually gave a lecture on it at the University of Utah, and maybe how we need to embrace more Indigenous knowledge into our academia. That reminds me of the story. One day an old Indian man was walking with a white man, and they were walking down the road. The Indian man leaned over and said to the white man, "Capitalism has sure messed up the environment. But the solution is to not end capitalism. It is to finish this sentence. Capitalism with regulations, capitalism with accountability, capitalism with a conscience." The Indian man might have suggested that capitalism, when properly regulated and held accountable for its impact on the environment, can be a powerful force for change. However, it requires a conscience and a willingness to prioritize the long-term health of the planet over short-term gains. Imagine an Indigenous world where traditional knowledge and practices are respected and integrated into our modern society, where land and its natural resources are preserved and protected, where community is prioritized over individualism, where diversity and inclusion are celebrated, and where Indigenous peoples and other marginalized groups have full agency and control over their own lives and future. Imagine a world where the beauty of nature was celebrated and revered, where the land and its creatures were treated with respect and gratitude. A world where people lived in harmony with one another. recognizing the inherent value and worth of every individual, regardless of their background. Imagine a world where the water and air are clean and pure. A world where we were taught to love one another and be united in all things. And be thankful for the favors that we receive. This was the world of my ancestors, the Native American people who lived here long before the Europeans arrived. They had a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all living things, and they lived in balance with this natural world. They honored the spirits of the earth, the sky, and the water, and recognized the vital role that each played in sustaining life. But then everything changed with the arrival of colonizers. Came a wave of destruction, desperation, devastation, and despair. The land was taken from the native peoples, their sacred sites destroyed or desecrated, their culture and tradition suppressed or banned. Yet in spite of all of this, we have fought to maintain our identity and our connection to the land. And I want you to know that we continue to do so today. We have a deep resiliency and a strong sense of community that has helped us survive even in the face of immense hardships. As a Native American man, I carry the weight of my ancestors' struggles with me every day. I also carry their strength and wisdom. And I am proud to be part of the people who have fought so hard to protect their way of life and to ensure that their voices are heard and never forgotten. In 1931, a Lakota medicine man named Black Elk had a vision. I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the earth. And while I stood there, I saw more than I could tell. And I understood more than I saw, for I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the spirit, in the shape of all things, as they must live together as one, as they must live together as one being. And I saw that this sacred hoop, my people, was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight, and in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. You see, Native American spirituality is deeply connected to the land, the environment, and the natural world. It emphasizes a holistic approach. Life values balance and harmony. It is rooted in the sense of a community, recognizing that individuals are a part of the larger. This perspective encourages people to work towards the greater good of the community, always. Native American spiritual leaders provided a source of strength and resiliency and healing for individuals and communities who have experienced trauma and marginalization. Reconnecting with traditional practices and beliefs allow all of us to draw on a sense of ancestral wisdom and guidance that gives meaning to our lives. Western culture speaks of 4 directions: north, east, south, and west. Native Americans often speak of 7 directions. The 4 that I mentioned: less the addition of the earth and the sky. The 6 directions are easily to locate. The 7th direction, though, is harder to see. It is the direction within us all. That place that helps us to see right from wrong and maintain the balance by choosing to live in a good way. 200 years ago, Shoshone elders did not prepare the children for successful career paths in the capitalist system. Their stories were meant to create self-motivated, self-directed, community-minded, brilliant, loving citizens who at their core upheld the ideal values around family and community and their environment. They encouraged their children to find joy and place it at the center of their lives. They encouraged their children to value consent. Consent was key to building nations where exploitation, extraction, and depletion was unthinkable. The beauty of this kind of thinking is that it challenges the capitalistic system. Native Americans and other marginalized groups and communities are often disproportionately affected by environmental degradations. As we promote environmental justice, we challenge that capitalistic system that prioritizes profits over health and the well-being of the planet and its inhabitants. You see, Native American people have always possessed a profound spiritual kinship with nature. Pre-Columbus America was still our first Eden. Native people were transparent in this ecosphere. When Columbus and others first entered this continent, it bore marks of thousands of years of human habitation and activity. As they moved inland, they continued to encounter settlements and agricultural landscapes. The pioneers at the head of the Euro-American advance followed signposts of cleared fields and orchards that have long recorded the experience of Native Americans in selecting good soils and managing local ecologies. Every plant, tree, and animal carried its own unique wisdom to teach us how to live harmoniously with one another and in relationship to Mother Earth. The lands that the colonizers first put their eyes upon was not untouched or wild, as some have reported, but rather the result of a broad range of indigenous land management techniques. We know that the earth and all of its creations came into being by the hands of the Great Spirit as the designer and the creator. The Great Spirit put into place finely tuned systems, cycles, physical parameters that would always stay in line. We were always given careful instruction to take care of it. We are caretakers and not owners, a distinction that is often misunderstood today. Lands have always belonged to the Creator and not to us. We were instructed to not overuse the land and allow it to rest during certain times. The Creator expects us to sustainably manage the resources we have. We have been instructed to leave an inheritance for those yet to come. In the late 1800s, John Muir said that the Indians walked softly and heard the landscape hardly more than a bird or squirrel. And as a result, the lands that the Europeans first arrived to were rich and fertile, organized and well tended. Our people never struggled against nature. They worked within a set bounds out of a spirit of respect. We took no more than we could use and used all we could from what we took. always making sure that we put the time and energy back into the land, so that she would continue to yield for years and years, and for many generations to come. We have always believed, as you should, that the Great Spirit put everything on this earth for our survival. Nature needs to be tended and carefully and lovingly maintained. Be respected and not dominated. The natural resources on this earth will continue to produce year after year, but only when our steps are right and our hearts are right. But it seems like things have changed. How do we reconcile the past, where Western values teach us that we have rights to use the land for extraction and depletion and development for the sake of making a dollar, versus the indigenous mindset that has we have obligations to the past, present, and future, obligations to our communities, obligations to our non-human kinfolk. Western worldviews are often scientific and skeptical, often requiring proof as a basis for belief. Indigenous worldviews are based on a spiritually oriented society. This is a system based on a belief in the spirit world. The native peoples, land, and water are spiritual. Western worldviews say that there is only one truth based on science or law. Indigenous worldviews say that there can be many truths. Truths are dependent upon individual experiences. Western worldviews has a way of compartmentalizing society. Indigenous worldviews say that societies operate in a state of relatedness. Everything and everyone are related. Identity comes from those connections. Western worldviews say that the land and water and its resources should be available for extraction and depletion. Indigenous worldviews say that the land and water is sacred and is only given by our Creator. Be carefully maintained. Western worldviews judge our success by helping achieve our goals. Indigenous worldviews judge our success by the quality of our relationships with people. Western worldviews say that human beings are the most important thing in the world. Indigenous worldviews say that human beings are not the most important thing in the world. And Western worldviews teach us that amassing wealth should be always done for personal gain. Indigenous worldviews say that amassing wealth is important, but only for the good of the community. Do you know that the Iroquois Nation, their leadership doesn't make any decisions without considering what effect that decision will have on 7 generations ahead? Think about the implications for our future. Our leaders govern that way. There's an old Native American proverb that says, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. What kind of world are we leaving them? What will their world look like? Isn't it time to change our thinking and approach when it comes to stewarding this earth? Can we change our thinking and consider not only the health of the people, but also the health of the watersheds that nourish our lakes and rivers, and the health of our non-human kinfolk, as my grandmother always referred to? You see, the health of the people will always parallel the health of our water. Scientists finally discovered But Indigenous elders have been teaching for generations that we are all connected. Politicians are discovering what the Iroquois already knew, that we must govern for the future of our future generations. That is what young activists are saying when they demand climate justice. We cannot sacrifice the future for the sake of short-term gains. There is not enough science in the world that will overcome our selfish behaviors. A scientist once said, I used to think that the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 good years of science, we could address the problem. But I was wrong. The top environmental problems today are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do that. Just over 100 years ago, Colorado River Commission met and they signed the Colorado River Compact at Bishop's Lodge in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The commission included delegations from the 7 Colorado Basin states, and it was chaired by a man named Herbert Hoover. It was a celebrated event, as you can imagine. Never mind that they allocated twice as much water than was ever there. Do you know who wasn't there? Let me tell you. The more than 30 federally recognized tribes from the Great Basin. You see, manifest destiny was never about land in the West. It's always been about water. Land without water rights is useless in the West. First in time, first in right became the law of the land, unless you were Native American. What if the tribes had been invited to the table? Would things be different today? Would the Colorado River and many other waterways, including our beloved Great Salt Lake, being in the extreme crisis conditions that they are in today, if they had been co-managed by Indigenous peoples? If Native American voices had been heard, I believe that water allocation would have been more equitable, sustainable. You see, Native Americans have a deep understanding of land and water systems in that region, and have been practicing sustainable land and water use for thousands of years. By incorporating this knowledge into the compact, it's possible that the agreement would have been more inclusive and effective in ensuring long-term water security for all of the stakeholders. One day, a hunter for homicide was killed. Far too much to be eaten by his family. A mountain man nearby noticed, and he said to the hunter, "How are you going to store the excess?" Because drying and storing technologies were well known. The hunter seemed puzzled by the question, and he said, "Store the meat. Why would I do that?" Instead, he sent out an invitation for the whole village to come together to enjoy it. As soon as the whole village had gathered around this fire, they ate until every last morsel was consumed. Well, this really bothered the mountain man, who again said to the hunter at the end of the evening, "Given the uncertainty of fresh meat in the forest, it would have been smarter for you to share the excess for you and your family for future use. The hunter again looked at him and said, store the meat. I store the meat in the belly of my brother. Is it possible to live that way again? How much are we willing to sacrifice for our brother? For our communities? Haven't some of us coveted to do just that? What if we look at this story in a different way? In a way that will return balance to nature? What if our leaders open the gates of our reservoirs and restore the flow of water to the Great Salt Lake instead of storing the water for future use? What would that look like? Maybe the lake could once again be the wildlife, support migratory bird patterns for many species. I know it would support local weather patterns, such as lake effect, which will replenish the mountain snows for years to come. It could once again restore balance that many of us seem to lost. Maybe now's the time to bring together Indigenous with scientific knowledge to manage our environments in a way that will change the world. When Robin Wall Kimmerer, my favorite author, speaks about the three sisters, she is referring, by the way, to corns, beans, and squash, which in Indigenous communities are always planted next to each other in a symbiotic relationship. Corn is planted first, providing a structure for the beans to grow. Beans are then planted, fixing nitrogen back into the soil and providing a source of protein. Squash is always planted last, providing ground covering to suppress weeds and retain moisture in the soil. The story of the three sisters can be that in a couple of ways. Physically, this planting technique is sustainable because it reduces the need for fertilizers and pesticides. It conserves water and increases biodiversity. But symbolically, the story emphasizes the importance of balance, harmony, and respect for the natural world. It places a value on traditional, indigenous, ecological knowledge. This indigenous wisdom has been developed over thousands of years through observation, experience, and deep connections to the natural world. It is always a holistic approach, recognizing the interconnectedness of all living things, and it emphasizes the importance of balance and harmony in our lives. Indigenous knowledge can provide insights into sustainable and management practices, biodiversity conservation, and relationships between humans and our non-human kinfolk. Scientific knowledge, on the other hand, is based on methods, observations, experimentations, and analysis. It provides us with a wealth of knowledge that has improved our lives in many ways. Science helps us understand the process that governs the natural world. Haven't we scienced this problem to death? Now it seems like the only solution for our problems we are facing is to include more science. Think about that one for a minute. But there's one thing that science can't do, and it's the elephant in the room that most politicians that I've talked to don't want to talk about, but not you, Ben. It's climate change. Climate change is already having a significant impact on the planet, and it will continue to do so in the future. We're already seeing rising sea levels, which will cause devastating floods that will displace millions of people. We are seeing more extreme weather patterns, severe heat waves, droughts, hurricanes, wildfires. It will cause changes in agricultural productivity. It will become more difficult to grow crops, which will lead to food shortages and higher prices. We will see greater biodiversity loss, which will contribute to the extinction of many species of plants. And climate change will have a significant impact on our health. What we do in the next decade will define us. Not doing anything is not an option. It is crucial that individuals, governments, and businesses take action to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and limit the impact of climate change. When you assume that scientific knowledge is superior to Indigenous wisdom, you make collaboration impossible. And that is what we are going to need in the future. We know what to do. We know what the problem is. We know the drivers of climate change. We know all of these things. We know what we need to do to solve them, but we failed to act. We failed to act because we haven't incorporated values with knowledge. Incorporated values will promote collaboration and dialogue. This kind of collaboration will lead to more effective and equitable solutions to issues. Incorporating values can inform policy decisions by considering the ethical, cultural, and social implications of environmental actions. This will help decision makers to be more responsive to the needs of our most marginalized communities who are the most affected. Incorporating values will raise public awareness for environmental issues and their importance. It will help all of us to become more engaged and informed. Incorporating values will require all of us to use our studied direction. We'll let that be our guide. I believe we're in the midst of a massive paradigm shift. Now is the time to bring together this Indigenous knowledge and values about our stewardship with cutting-edge science to create watershed institutions and create policies to steward our waterway, our environment, and our climate for future generations. This will require a collaborative effort that recognizes the importance of both systems. Let me give you an example of what we're doing today. In 2018, the Northwest Earth Band and Shoshone Nation purchased 550 acres of the Darren massacre site. This was only the beginning of a journey that began more than a century and a half ago. We can tell our own story from our perspective. More than 400 bodies are still on the site today. It's a sacred burial ground. After the purchase of the land, my first visit was to Utah State University, where I met with professors from the College of Natural Resources. I told them I had a vision and a goal to restore the land to what it looked like in 1863, using my grandmother's plant diary as a guide. I wanted to know if it was feasible. And I knew that I didn't possess the skill set necessary to make that kind of a decision. Our first interaction more than 4 years ago has brought us to where we are today. We've raised more than $7 million for the land restoration effort. We have developed partnerships between my people, the science communities at Utah State University and the University of Utah, and many others. As one professor told me, this will be a living, learning classroom for decades to come. It will require more than removing non-native plants and trees and planting new seeds. It involves restoring the watershed, which will require buy-in from the neighbors upstream. How will they feel about the reintroduction of the beaver into their ecosystem? How will they feel about changing their decades-old farming practices when we create riparian buffer zones? We will be moving Beaver Creek back into its original channel with the eventual goal of reintroducing the bottom-bill cutthroat trout. This is not a project that my people could have done alone. But as my good friend, who's a PhD student, said, healing begins when you bring people together. What we are doing at Bear River will not only symbolically, but literally have a long-lasting impact on not only the Bear River, but on the future of the Great Salt Lake and many other waterways in Utah. As a small boy, I loved getting in my grandmother's old Oldsmobile and going for a car ride. I thought it took all day to get there, but in reality, it was like 45 minutes. From Davis County to Cache Valley, where I live today. As a car would come to the stop, she'd get out, she'd go to the trunk and pull out a stained woven willow basket that was stained dark purple. I then knew that we were there in harvest choke cherries, like my people had done for thousands of years. She taught me what signs to look for to know when the berries were ripe. After we offered a prayer to the Creator, then to Mother Earth, and then another prayer to the berries themselves, we began picking berries with such care that we wouldn't even harm a leaf on a tree. She taught me the importance of sharing those berries with those in need, or with those who could not make it to the mountain that day. And she taught me the importance of storing those berries for future use. As I think back on that experience, those berries are much like our life today. As we go through different experiences and lessons of life, are we gathering everything that our parents and friends and people who we come in contact with daily teach us? Are you gathering knowledge, even from those who are unkind? She would tell me, be attentive. Listen with all your mind and soul. Sometimes you will go through hard things, but with great care, I want you to take those berries of knowledge and experience and place them in your basket, and you should cherish them. And then one day, when someone you care for is in need, facing a challenge, needs a little nourishment or encouragement, a little guidance or help, what are you going to do? How will you choose to use your berries of knowledge? What choices will you make? I hope all of us will pull out those berries of knowledge and wisdom and use them for someone in need. Maybe even someone like our non-human kinfolk today. Adriana Brown said, I believe that if you listen to the natural world, you will inevitably find your place in movements for social and environmental justice. The world as we know it has ended for many things, many times. But in this era, this now, is a never before known time to create, to investigate, to listen, and to invent. And it's not because we have all the answers, not because we know the way, but precisely because we don't. I don't know how to fix the problems we have today in our environment alone. But I believe that abundance sprouts up in strangely improbable places. And what I do know is that I will fight alongside you for many foreseeable years. And I hope you will do the same. You know, there's a certain poppy which gets its germination cues from smoke. After the devastating wildfires in California in 2019, the hills that were once turned black with ash are now lined with these beautiful golden poppies. Similarly, we were all born to bloom, not in spite of the fire in our lives, but absolutely because of the fire in our lives. You see, our Creator needs people, all of us. He needs people on fire, especially about this topic. I love the prophecy of Chief Crazy Horse. You see, I'm slipping in a few Native American prophets here. Who I believe Crazy Horse could see our day and time. He had a dream before he died. And in his dream, he said this: upon suffering beyond suffering, the red nation shall rise again, and it will be a blessing to a sick world. A world filled with broken palaces, selfishness, and separations. A world longing for life again. I see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole earth will become one circle again. And then this is what I love. In that day, there will be those among my native people who will carry this knowledge and understanding of unity among all living things. And the young white ones will come to those of my people searching for this wisdom. I salute light in your eyes where the whole universe dwells. For when you are at that center within you, and I am in that place within me, we shall be as one. I don't know about you, but I think the words of Crazy Horse are prophetic. Like many Native American leaders who were before, and many these are indeed difficult times. But what brings me hope is that thousands of people are now coming together to say that our human being is connected to the well-being of our environment. And the well-being of our environment is connected to the well-being of our watershed planet. We are truly all connected. And the actions that we take in the next decade will affect generations to come. Let's stay active, stay engaged, and keep coming together to steward our environment and each other. So on this Earth Week, take time to celebrate one of the Earth's most mightiest things, the tree. Maybe even go plant one this week. You see, the tree springs from the soil. It gives back of itself in many, many ways. It provides beauty, shade, and habitat for countless creatures, and even material to build our homes. It roots finds footage in the ground, and it holds that soil close to keep it from washing away. It cleans the water we drink. It pulls harmful carbon dioxide from the air. It even makes oxygen for us to breathe. Just think about that. If one tree could do all of that, imagine what an entire forest can do. Imagine what we could do. The land is our mother. The rivers are blood. The mountains are bones. The air are breath. We are all one, connected by the earth. And it is our duty to protect her. On this Earth Day and Earth Week, let us all honor our ancestors who lived in harmony with nature. And let us pledge today to do the same. Let us walk gently on this earth, tread lightly on our soil, and cherish our gifts, for they are our substance. Let us sing songs of gratitude, dance in celebration, and offer thanks for the beauty that surrounds us. May we always remember that we are caretakers of this land, and may we honor her always for the sake of all beings. May the Creator bless all of us to be better stewards, to raise a voice, to be an example, and to show the kind of love that He expects from all of us. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.